We are talking today to Manjunath Gokare. He's a very prominent immigration lawyer in the US, based in Atlanta, Georgia. Um, uh, and we will start by asking him about questions about the most discussed category of work visas, which is the H1B visas. We know there's been a lot of changes to that visa and a lot of discussions. And considering that there are thousands of Indians on the there are numerous questions that need to be answered. So, if I could start by asking you, Manjunath, about the most impactful announcement in recent times on the H1B is undoubtedly the $100,000 uh, fee which will be charged to a certain category of H1B applicants. But after the initial, confusion and panic around that fee, there have been certain clarifications issued by the US government regarding who that fee will be applicable to. So, if you can, quickly give a little bit of details about who will be impacted by this new fee.
Okay. Thank you, Aishani, for this opportunity. It's a pleasure for me to be speaking to Voice of India World News. Yes, the proclamation of September 19th, which President Trump issued announcing the $100,000 fee for new H1Bs, created a lot of confusion. So on that Saturday following the proclamation on September 20th, I got phone calls and texts and emails from people who were traveling, who were very anxious all day long. So this proclamation came into effect at 12:01, which is midnight of September 21st, which is like really midnight of September 20th, beginning September 21st. So what they said was it'll apply. Initially, were not very clear as to who it applied to, and then later, by the end of Saturday, they clarified it's going to be applicable to new H1Bs. What that means, we still didn't know. And finally, Aishani, on October 20th, a week ago, they issued some more clarifications. Now, it seems to me that this $100,000 fee will apply to new H1s beginning 12:01 September 21st. And if you're filing a new H1B for a person who is not in the US, who is outside of the US, and who does not have a US visa already issued, this is going to apply to them. And also, another category of people would be if employers here request consular notification on their approvals, then also this would apply. And thirdly, even if there are people here in the US and the employers are filing a routine extension, transfer, and whatnot, if the transfer gets denied and the employee has to leave the country and come back in, then the $100,000 fee, the liability will apply to employers. So broadly, to simplify, I would say anybody who is outside of the US, it's a new H1, cap H1 or non-cap, where the employee does not have a visa, then the $100,000 fee would apply. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for the clarifications and putting it in simple language. I think it'll be beneficial to a lot of people to understand going forward. To whom the new fee will be applicable. So, but besides the new fee, there are several other changes in the H1B rules which are in the pipeline. So, if you could give a brief sense of what they are, and again, what kind of impact they are likely to have on people already on H1Bs, or those who are looking at applying for H1Bs, or in future.
Definitely. I mean, there are a lot of changes, Shani, which are being talked about. And so I will touch upon them in the order of impact. So one of the changes they have proposed is making the selection. We have an H1B lottery, right? Every year people file H1B, they put their name in the hat in the lottery, and if you get selected, then you file the petition. Beginning next year, next March, for next year's cap, the selection will be based on wage levels. There are 4 levels of wages under which H1Bs get filed: level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Level 1 is the lowest wage, and level 4 is the highest wage. So what USCIS is looking to do is, if you file an H1B for an employee with a level 4 wage, they are going to put that name in the lottery 4 times. And if you file an H1B for an employee at a level 3 wage, they will enter that name into the lottery 3 times. And level 2, 2 times, and level 1, 1 time. So what they are trying to do is, they are trying to make higher level wages, level 4 on down, the probability of them being selected in the lottery much higher than somebody at a lower wage. So to your question, it's going to impact the students, right? So if somebody is graduating with a bachelor's degree from the US or a master's degree from the US, most of these guys are entry level, so their wage levels will be level 1 or level 2. So the probability of them being picked in the lottery is low. So if you look at it mathematically, level 4 will have a 77% chance of getting picked in the lottery, and level 1 is only about 17%. So the spread will be quite different. So they're doing this deliberately to make sure that only higher wage people get selected in the H1B lottery, and lower wage people as such will get phased out. So this next year will be very interesting. I mean, for students who are graduating on OPTs, trying to file for H1B, their selection rates will be very, very low. So how this is going to play out longer term, we have to see. That may even impact the number of students who will be coming to the US, because if you don't get selected in the lottery, why would you want to even spend your money, come study here? You may consider alternate destinations, Australia, Europe, some other place. So that is a significant change which is coming down the pipeline. This rule was published about a month ago, and it was open for comment. I think the comment period has ended. So we have not seen the final rule yet, but our understanding is that's how it's going to play out. There are other things also I want to touch upon, but I wanted to stop here to see if you had any thoughts on that.
Yes, I was going to ask you about students, but you have already mentioned about them. So I guess they are the ones who are on OPT and looking to file H1B petition to continue with either the same employer or perhaps apply for other jobs. They certainly have cause for worry, if I got what you said correctly.
Yeah, significantly, right? So earlier, until this year, Aishani, the probability of each wage level getting picked was the same. Now, level 4 has a 4 times higher chance of getting picked compared to a level 1. And we know all these students on OPTs, their H1Bs are at level 1 or level 2. Most, oftentimes at level 2. So they will have a very low selection rate, which will impact, their continued work authorization in the US.
Right. So you were mentioning other points as well, if you could continue with that.
Yeah, two things which we are monitoring, Aishani, is a project called Project Firewall. I'm sure you've heard of it. So Project Firewall is basically investigations of H1B employers and oversight of H1B employers. The emphasis is going to be on wage discrepancies and also third-party placements. You see, H1Bs are used heavily for third-party placement by consulting companies, meaning the consulting company will have the H1B, but the employee is really working at AT&T or Facebook or somewhere else. So Project Firewall basically broadens the power the Secretary of the Department of Labor has to investigate employers. And they've said there will be a lot of interagency coordination between Department of Labor, Department of State, which issues visas, and Department of Homeland Security, which is USCIS, which approves the petitions. What they are saying is these are all investigations which will be certified by the Secretary of the Department of Labor. They will coordinate with other agencies like DHS and Department of State. The audits will be targeted. They will be mainly looking at employers who have a very high H1B ratio, meaning, bulk of their workforce is H1B, who are also doing a lot of third-party placements. So they want to investigate to see if these employers are really putting US workers at a disadvantage by employing H1B workers. So there will be aggressive enforcement. There will be, it'll be very targeted. And so I think I've not seen this play out yet, but I'm sure there are things happening behind the scenes to get this aggressively going. But this is something we are keeping a watch on. So this will certainly affect the third-party placements and how consulting companies do business. That's one area we are keeping a watch on. And another one, you've heard of it and you and I have talked about it, is some of the changes which they're looking to make to the H-1B program itself. See, H-1Bs are for specialty occupations. So specialty occupations, Ashani, are those which requires a bachelor's degree as a minimum for entry. So H-1Bs are not for anybody. It's for people, for positions which require a bachelor's degree. They're looking to narrow the definition of specialty occupation, meaning make it harder for H-1Bs. And then also, there are some employers who are cap exempt from H-1s, like educational institutions and then nonprofits and research organizations associated with them. They're trying to narrow that definition also, which will impact universities and research institutions and hospitals and all that. And increased scrutiny of third-party placements. I already talked about Project Firewall and how that is going to increase the scrutiny on third-party placements, and also stricter enforcement. And if you have had violations in the past, there are going to be higher penalties. So those changes and reforms to the H-1B program are also coming. So I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but these are realistic changes which are coming down the pipeline, which will change the H-1B landscape. Beginning now, we are really curious to see what next year will look like.
Right. There's one category of H-1Bs who, perhaps are not being talked about so much, are the ones who are on these long green. And, so they also have to do a certain amount of paperwork and, filings, etc. So are any of the new rules directly affecting them, or are there any other issues which are affecting them in a big way at this moment? As a lawyer, from the legal perspective, if you could throw some light on this category.
So, as we all know, the queue for green cards for especially India-born people is very, very long, right? 15, 20, 25 years. So while they are pending, they have their green card petitions filed and pending, obviously they have to keep renewing their H-1Bs. And so one particular change which they're proposing with this $100,000 fee could impact people who are standing in line for the green card. So one of the things they've said is, if you are filing an extension here, and if the extension gets H-1B extension and the extension gets denied, then the employer has to pay a $100,000 fee. Not only the employee has to leave, but there is also a $100,000 fee for them to come back in. So that really worries me, because what if they deliberately start denying routine extensions? I've seen that happen under the previous, Trump 1.0 is what I call it, 2016 through 20, wherein people who had been here for a very long time and filing routine extensions based on their green card suddenly started denying those. And so people, with children in high school and who had been here, bought houses, cars, and all that, were forced to leave. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it could happen, right? So if the USCIS is saying that if your extension gets denied, then an employer has to pay $100,000. What's the likelihood an employer will pay a $100,000 fee to bring the employee back? First, they have to send him or her out, and then bring them back, which is a significant expense. Many employers may not be able to afford. So I don't know if they will use that mechanism to really make people leave. It could happen. And it'll be naive for me to think that it may not happen, but that really worries me, where they can find reasons to deny extensions and impose the $100,000 liability on employers, and then people have to suddenly go out, and then the employer is not able to bring them back in. And plus, they're not doing anything to reduce the backlogs, right? So the backlogs are what they are because there are more people standing in the queue from India. The visa numbers are the same. The visa numbers, green card numbers, have not increased in 35 years. So you don't see that line reducing. So backlogs continue to be what they are. Plus, if they start denying cases, then it's going to affect a lot of people. And I don't know if you saw, there were some reports of people home sales in America reducing for H1B holders. People on H1Bs are putting a hold on buying new homes. It's risky. You spend a lot of money and you buy a house and your visa gets denied. What do you do? And, I live in a small neighborhood near my office. We have 75 homes in our neighborhood. There are two people who moved in, both are from India, both are on H1Bs. And I sometimes worry for them. They have young children and all that. What if the visa gets denied? What do you do? So those are real issues and real problems.
I think there's another issue related to this, to what you just said, though, we won't go into that in too much depth now, maybe, for that's a discussion for another day. But if you could touch upon it again, the layoffs which are happening, I mean, we hear of them every day. I mean, just yesterday, there was a very big tech company which has announced layoffs. So that
17,000.
Yes. So that affects people on green card queues in a very big way, I suppose. So are you seeing that also, sort of impacting a lot of Indians who are on H1B and green card queues, perhaps?
Yes. See, I get a lot of consultation requests. And so these are people, many of the consultations we do are for people in similar, in a bind, and they don't know what to do. Many of the calls I get, especially in the last few months, is people losing their jobs. And so, if you lose your job on an H1B, you have a 60-day grace period within which you can find another job and transfer your H1B to a different company. It's not happening. I mean, people are finding it hard to find new jobs. And so the question I always get is, yesterday somebody called me, hey, my grace period started on September 15th. He was laid off. We are already end of October, so a month and a half has gone. I've not found anything. What do I need to do? People are filing a change of status to visitor's visa, like a B2, just to remain here for some more time and buy time to look for another job. We don't know how under the previous administration, they would be sympathetic to these kinds of change of status to a visitor's visa and taking more time to look for a job in this country. That may change. I mean, maybe if the government becomes less lenient, really at 60 days, people may have to leave. And so it's a big problem if you have children in school, middle of the school year, your homes and cars, what do you do? And so, yes, I'm seeing H1B transfers. People are finding it hard to get other employment and file H1B transfers. And complicating this is the government shutdown, right? So federal government has been shut down because they cannot agree on a continuing resolution for the budget. And so we cannot file, we can file H1Bs if the LCA is certified, but the LCA labor condition application is filed with the Department of Labor. The Department of Labor is closed. So I cannot file LCAs. So even if somebody finds a job, filing H1Bs, everything is on hold, standstill. So that is also causing a lot of anxiety to people. So we have routine extensions on hold. So people whose H1Bs are expiring, they cannot file extensions because the government is not working. It's shut down. So just, anyway, you look around in any direction, you see challenges.
Right. Thank you for all these points. And, I'm sure they're going to be helpful for a lot of our viewers. You've covered a lot of ground here. I mean, to end, if I could ask you about one category where perhaps, things are not in so much of disarray, which is Indians who are on green cards. Do any of the new rules impact them a lot, or any significant impact on their employment status and their visa status?
See, there are other visa categories, but they're kind of limiting in a way. Ashani, you and I have talked about O1 visas, extraordinary ability visas. And I shared some data with you as to how small of a pie it is, in terms of the numbers compared to H1Bs. The elephant in the room is the H1Bs. It's widely used, broadly applicable, and that's the reason why they're really targeting H1Bs. There are no changes to L1s. L1s are intra-company transfers, wherein people are coming from a foreign company to a US company, and the two companies are related to each other. We don't see a lot of changes. Over there, those petitions do get approved because their volumes are low. So the entire focus is on H1s, and this administration had made it clear they're going to go after H1s. And this was no surprise. And it took them a while to get to it because they were focused on deportation, mass deportation, enforcement of people who are here illegally with the removal orders and stuff like that. So H1Bs, I think things were happening in the back burner, but in the last few months, suddenly I've seen increased spotlight on H1s, and it's worrisome. And there are so many people on H1s who have been in this country for a number of years, and they are all going to see an impact. And it's a lot of uncertainty for people, and it's people are anxious, people are worried, and that we get a lot of calls, and it's unbelievable as to how many calls I get for consultations, questions, new clients. We try to give as much information as we can, and we do that through LinkedIn also to just keep people educated. And this interview is one of them also, just to what you're doing is wonderful. It gives information to people.
Thanks a lot for saying that. And, as the new normal, perhaps if we could call it that, for H1Bs gradually kicks in, I mean, increasingly people are going to depend on, lawyers and experts like yourself, for the way forward. And thanks so much for answering our questions. And we'll keep coming back to you as things, as new rules are announced, and new norms are laid out by the US government. Thanks a lot for talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for doing this. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak with you, and I really appreciate it.